Okay. All right. We are live. What's up, guys? John Sintez here, Cutternation podcast.
Johnny,
Cast
it's
price
87.
low.
Do you want to change it? Do you want to
Oh,
change it right now?
no, I already took care of it. I did the
Oh,
other
okay.
stuff.
All right.
So,
Oh, yeah.
it's no
87 to
big deal.
88.
Yeah, it's okay. Well, we snuck in a podcast before this. So, Coach Ferber, the man. But first, please don't forget, please rate, review, and subscribe. The numbers have been going up. We're super excited. We've been getting monster guests, just like our man here, Mr. Ferber, Mr. Jason, Coach Ferber. But without further ado, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come over here and just drop some spiciness on us, because you are one of my favorite just coaches I've ever seen, because of the level of fun that you put into the game that is just missed so much at the level. And I feel like what you do for kids' mentality and the perspective that you bring to them is just so valuable, and it shows in the amount of guys that you've gotten to the next level, and how things have gone. So my hat's off to you on how you go about training your guys, and the way they present themselves, displaying the influence that you've put upon them.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that, guys. Thanks so much for having me, and it's always an honor. And to be able to come on and share ideas with other coaches that like to talk and network and stuff like that. So many guys feel like they're off in their own little island, and I always like the way that you guys have been sharing information on all your outlets, because it seems like you're very open to connect people. And for me, I don't know any other way to learn, or to play catch up, because I got to play catch up in a lot of stuff. Like the stuff that you got, that some of the younger guys are uh, really skilled in, like the data stuff. I'm playing catch up right now, and that's okay, because some of the younger guys are playing catch up in some of the areas that you were talking about, like building relationships with kids, how to build trust with a young athlete, and what buttons you have to press with certain guys. Some of that comes with experience, and the more young athletes in different ages were around, you start to see like, oh wait, I can't treat that guy like this guy. He's gonna shut down. Or you say, wait, I'm talking to a Dominican kid. I can't tell him any fancy words. He doesn't understand what I'm saying. I got to do something else to get through him. So I appreciate all that stuff, and I really love what you guys do too. So thanks for having me on, guys.
I appreciate that, man. I always say this all the time, how I think we have actually an advantage by working with really young players. I was just ended our last podcast talking about yesterday. I had a 7-year-old. He's from out east, actually, and I don't know if you did sit the 2, 3, 4 thing. That was just brilliant. I'm never going to be able to forget that, because it now gives me access to 7-year-olds' brains, but it also is like, I'm going to get pro guys that are like doing weird things with their hands, and I'll be just like, put a 2 on the ball and it's going to be game over. My question to you is, because I've known you forever. So where did this start? Like, how did you know? I mean, I imagine my old boss, Gene Larkin, is from the Bronx. So I kind of get the idea of where you guys are coming from. But how did you know how to connect to the level that you do with your kids? Like, what inspired that? Who were the people that showed you that? Or, where did that come from?
I think growing up, I grew up really poor. My family, we were on welfare in Brooklyn, and in the '80s too. So there was a big spike in crime, big crack epidemic in that time period. So learning how to maneuver around different groups of people was essential. Like, you had to have that skill, or you were going to get eaten alive, because there was guys that could freestyle rap. That whole thing was going on. They had a group of guys that were athletes. They had a group of guys that were drug dealers. They had a group of guys that were gang affiliated, tried to rob the drug dealers. They had artists, graffiti artists, right? They had all these different little pockets of kids that were competing and having fun, right? Even the drug dealers, to a degree, they're competing too, right? And I'm just being honest about what you're looking at on a daily basis, right? So you kind of choose where you spend your time with. I had an older brother that I hung out with a lot of his friends, 3 years older than me. So I was constantly overmatched growing up in the games that I was playing. I always got my shot blocked in basketball because everybody was a foot taller than me. Graffiti, I was no good. I tried it. It's trash. I couldn't freestyle. I would be like Jay-Z right now. Trust me. If I could freestyle rap, I would be doing that, but I couldn't do that either. But it started with stickball. And we used to play for an Italian ice, a slice of pizza. So in the 80s, you could get a slice of pizza and Italian ice, rainbow flavored Italian ice, not the cherry, that's the fugazi. You want the Italian ice, rainbow flavored, okay? And then you get a small Coke for $1.50, okay? Johnny, right? You better pay attention because if you want to eat out here, okay, you better be ready to gas somebody up or hit a bomb because you play head up for lunch every single day, right? That's how you get it.
Awesome.
You either eat lunch or you're buying somebody else's lunch. And when you have no money, trust me, it's valuable, $1.50, okay? So you go out there and you just gas it up hard as you can possibly throw. There is no curveballs. There is no changeups. That's non-existent in a stickball game. And then there are no flared singles to right field. They're either bombs over the next building, down the street, and into the sewer, and it's gone, right? And then you got to fish it out. When you lose the blue Spalding bouncy balls, right? The only way to get those, because you can't keep buying them if you have no money, it's pretty disgusting. You have to take a clothes hanger, and straighten it out, right? And leave a little hook on the end. Then you got to go into the sewer where all the rats are, like your arm, like where that, that clown movie, what was it called again? It or whatever. No, yeah. Like you have to go down in the sewer.
You got to float down. You got to float down first. Yeah.
You don't want to go all the way, but we did. Yeah. I want to say here, I have put my arm in a sewer before, and that's not nothing I'm proud about because I didn't get corona. I didn't get corona. I had to get a Spalding, man. But that's where it started. That's where it started, man. It was like just grimy, like street games, and when you don't have a lot of money, that's the only leverage and the only trade you can do is, all right, well, I can get picked up first in this game, right? And that doesn't cost me any money. If I go out here and I ball out, these guys are going to want me to. So you try to build self-confidence and as a young kid, if you don't have money, you got to find other ways to build that. Say, man, I don't have nice clothes. This guy got the new Jordans down the street. I don't have those. I don't have a gold chain. I don't have, my family doesn't have a car. Kids making fun of you sometimes. And you say, well, the only thing you can do at that point is do stuff where the exchange of goods and services is not like with money, right? So that's pretty much where the love of it started. And I think it being in those different, I'm Puerto Rican and Jewish, which is a very weird combination, Cass, okay?
Yeah.
Puerto Rico, it's like they used to call me Juan Epstein, okay, back in the day, right?
Oh man!
Hey, the joke was, see, here's the thing: if you're Puerto Rican and Jewish, right? It's very simple. What you want, this is what you strive for as a baseball player, as an athlete. Listen. You want the Puerto Rican athleticism and finesse, and you want the Jewish money, right? That's what you want. I unfortunately got the Jewish finesse and the Puerto Rican money. No good. It was reversed. Johnny spin rate. Hey, I needed awesome. Puerto Rican salsa, man.
Hey. Well, here's a funny little connection. I'm actually half Puerto Rican also, and Puerto Rican and Welsh, and it's so funny because my dad gives me a hard time sometimes because he's like, I have no idea how you fell in love with baseball. My dad was a surfer in the 70s, never really played sports, but like always pretty good athlete though. Looking back on like how much he surfed and how much he traveled the world surfing and stuff. But I think it just started with a TV thing. And then the neighborhood kids. I remember having a hockey goal with a piece of cardboard that my dad zip tied to it for the strike zone. And we would play all day with the tennis ball, baseball, and just, it was like the sidewalk, the tree, and the mailbox were bases and stuff. And so, the thing that I get with the stories that you've told and some of the other people told on the podcast it seems to be that from the genesis, there's a one-on-one idea in baseball, and people fall in love with that idea. And the way that you approach the game, the way that we approach the game, it's very, similar, understanding that like you basically were learning how to compete inside of live at bats with like your world on the line, right? Like what a higher stake game that you were playing at the age that you were in the middle of the street. And that competition births such great things. And I don't understand in the game of baseball how that's not identified more. Looking back on my personal experience,
Yeah, 100%. I put it this way. When you look at it, I'm glad you said that, because there's also a big piece of it, I think, nowadays that it's very hard to compare. Okay. What that people don't realize is that when I was doing that, or even anybody who didn't have social media when they were growing up, okay, which I'm in that group of when I was 14, 13, 14, 15, those crucial 11, 12 development stages where you're finding out who you are as a person, what level you compete at, where you fit in, right? That stage, I was comparing myself to the guys in my neighborhood, okay? So 500 maybe, the guys that played that I knew, from different parts of the city, different neighborhoods, that's who came out to play. So you judged yourself based off that. Now, if I'm judging myself off of a kid in Oregon that throws 95 from the left side and I'm 15, I'm judging myself if on social media on 9 million amateur baseball players, right? So it's skewed. You're not, my goal wasn't necessarily to make it to the big leagues when I was growing up. Everybody has these dreams of being, I used to love watching Derek Jeter. I would go to the thing, but I wasn't even dreaming that big. I'd like to be honest with you and say that I dreamt I could be Derek Jeter. The thought passed my mind, but I didn't sit like a lot of guys saying I just dreamed of, becoming Mike Trout. I was just content because of the situation I was in, and how much I didn't feel good about myself in general at the time, based on my situation. I was content just getting picked first or second in the game and being the guy in the neighborhood with like, oh, like that's a dude right there. I was happy with that because it gave me something to feel good about. And so it depends, I think, what you're surrounding yourself. If you're a kid that grew up in Texas and every single person in your family was a baseball player for the last 100 years and your grandfather played in minor leagues, and you're gonna grow up the way you perceive what the game is different completely than a guy that's just in a neighborhood bowling out. So I think it's key for kids to understand, like, I don't need to compare myself with 9 million people. That's not the way that even God or nature intended for us to. We're supposed to compete with the guys in our village for the prettiest girl. That's it, right? We're supposed to throw a spear farther than the guy in our village to get the prettiest girl. I'm the strongest in the village. Okay, if I compare myself to every caveman in the world, now it's off, right? Something's off.
I love the idea of comparing yourself to who you were yesterday. And I think that what you just said, though, is part of the reality of it, right? So I think there's the ideal part where I can sit and tell every kid, you shouldn't be looking at anybody. You should only be focusing on what you did yesterday and how you can do it better today. 1%, whatever, however you want to say it, Kaizen, the whole shtick. But then the reality is, like, how are you going to get that girl? How are you going to be picked first? Like, you're not going to just do that by competing. You have to know who you're with. And I think one thing that's, as I'm just like on this journey professionally and personally, it's like the people that get it are the ones that also know how to see everything else almost as if it's a movie in front of them. John and I on the podcast before were talking about the Michael Jordan stuff. And it's like, I think I don't think he like attached himself to anything. He was just constantly like observing. And I think that's part of the thing that you lose. And if I'm only stuck comparing myself to yesterday, I'm going to be a little bit too in my head with that, so it's an interesting balance. And I'll leave it with this. It's so funny how, you talked at the beginning of this is of us connecting this and, just being connectors. And in Minnesota, I don't know if you knew this, Jason, but I moved here at the end of 2018. And that's kind of what made me really go hard with this with John, was that in that community, everybody was like, yeah, that guy isn't what we are. And this guy isn't what we are. And nobody was talking to one another and collaborating. And I left, and I'm like, damn, I didn't know who. You know who Cal Dietz is?
Cal Dietz. Why does that name sound familiar?
So Cal Dietz is the strength coach at the University of Minnesota, and he came up with the idea of triphasic training, which is just the idea that you have the eccentric, isometric, and concentric phases of the lift. And so, like, I'm oversimplifying this, but a very simple way to think about it is you'll do a 6-week strength program. The first 2 weeks are going to be isometrics, like all of your lifts are only just hold it at the bottom, hold it at the top, or hold it in the middle, something like that. And then the next 2 weeks are going to be, you're only going to focus on lowering the weight, right? The lowering of the pull-up, the lowering of the squat, the lowering of the deadlift. And then that last 2 weeks, you're going to do it all together, right? Your full normal squat, where you're focusing on the concentric. And had you heard of the triphasic idea, or is this familiar?
No, what I'm thinking you're making me think of right now. I knew a guy, this is 15 or 20 years ago, that was, I basically knew him from a nightclub scene when I used to go out, but the guy was shredded, okay? And he was a Persian dude. It's going to get somewhere, don't worry.
Yeah.
The guy was telling me, I was like, when you see a guy like, hey, what do you do for work? What do you eat? This and that. We see a guy that's into working out. And the guy was like, I do no weights. I do no cardio. He says, what I do is I pose, I hold poses. I think it's isometric. I don't know. But like the guys that on stage, he would hold poses until he was dripping sweat for like on there. I think the Wi-Fi is this. Did the Wi-Fi go out for a sec?
Yeah, you're coming in and out, but the audio is usually really good. So, just roll with it.
Gotcha. So he was basically just saying he just was holding these poses and he got shredded like that. I don't know. It just made me think of that. But so
yeah.
What's the benefit to doing it that way?
Well, okay. It's just like a take on it. We can come back to it. I just want to make the point that I'm trying to make is that this is one of the like leaders in the industry, and he was right down the road for me. And I was like, even I knew who he was. My really good friend Sam Topping is also a strength and conditioning coach, and he was like, he interned with him, and just like the fear of like, what if somebody told me no, you can't meet with me? Like that's all it was. It was this fear that I wasn't good enough to be in that conversation. And then I got to Southern California. I'm like, well, if I'm able to hold a conversation with this community, I can hold a conversation with anybody, because Southern California is the hotbed for baseball, and there aren't, if there's going to be somebody that knows what they're doing, they're usually here. So anyway, that's kind of, I've just realized that wasn't very helpful, right? For me to sit in my own world and think that I'm doing it the right way and that these other people couldn't be doing it our way. Since we've, even as the podcast has evolved, we've done such a better job of just like, Jay, just tell us all about you. And it's crazy how much that it puts us in a position, like you already said, where we just get to connect people. And we've brought people, I think, already. And me personally, like I have brought people into our circle that I was a little bit skeptical of. And I've just been blown away by the things that they teach us. And it's fundamentally driven by the idea that Jordan Peterson tells everybody that the people that you hate, or you are missing out on things because they know things that you don't know. So people that you don't like, you should probably reconsider that, because the reason that you don't like them is because you don't understand them and they hold things that you can't know.
100%. I agree 1,000% what you're saying. They have also, what I would say is, I was handcuffed at the beginning of when I remember now going back, you guys, when I think about when I first started coaching and just learning, I was severely handcuffed by the idea and notion of worrying about what a coach next to me that was training another guy that was a more experienced coach was thinking about the drills that I was doing with my guy. And if he thought that they were, and I would constantly be peering over to see, like, is my athlete better than his athlete? Is my training method, is my drill design, when I design a drill, is it something that, and I got completely, the athletes suffer, because I got to a point, and I think that if any young coach that's out there gets to this point, you're going to unlock a lot of stuff. When you can truly understand that player feedback is what you're looking for, what I'm looking for, not coach's feedback. I like to talk to coaches, I like to collaborate with coaches, I like to learn with coaches. But ultimately, if my player, that sometimes can put you at a ceiling. Why do I want to just think exactly at this level. If I have like you did, Cass, the other day, you weren't talking to another coach when you started thinking about those fingers. Something clicked in your mind at that point because your mind was already open to learn something new or look at something a different way. So you started with an open mind. Then you try to diagnose a problem and you said, this is what I want him to move like, or this is what I want him to feel. How can I do that in a creative way that it doesn't matter? Once you start doing it that way, once I stopped caring, essentially, what other people thought, man, I started to really start helping my players. Better players started to show up. Pro guys started to show up because they were like, dude, this guy, he makes you feel a certain way when you go in there. It's not just, I'm getting my work in. I'm able to actually enjoy getting my work in, right? It's now become a little bit different in that way. So yeah, I feel like if you're right on point with that stuff, guys.
I've legitimately been telling, I told this kid, 7-year-old that I was talking about, I legitimately am thanking these kids. I'm letting them know, I'm like, listen, bro, what we just did right there, maybe it's not that cool for you, but I just had a huge breakthrough mentally because of you not being able to understand me at the beginning. I know that was kind of frustrating, but it made me figure out a better way to say that. And even if it wasn't that great for you, thank you so much, because that just opened a huge door for me. So I've kind of had this like huge shift since joining John, and a lot of it's, to his credit of like allowing me to be myself and allowing me, I'll throw it to you, John. Do you remember like how gun shy I was to give you my opinion?
Yeah.
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 Like go.
I was going to say he wanted to shadow and, regurgitate the same language that I was doing. And I was like, I said, it does. I don't think you need to repeat the same phrasing. I mean, the ideas are different, and even how I had approached throwing. I had talked to other guys doing the same thing before and just kind of picked their brain and how they go about, start to finish. I asked them about, when you get a brand new client, how do you go about, starting with, just the basics, trying to learn how the industry works, how to, put the best possible product ahead in front for the clients, because really that's what you're trying to do. We're trying to create pitching gangsters. That's pretty much what I've summed it up to, because, there's a way to actually understand the game of baseball, and especially as a pitcher, that, we are taught these things in fear that don't make sense. And so, Cast displaying that also in the same thing, with trying to make sure the guys are doing the right stuff. It took him a little bit to be able to be comfortable with, like, we got 6, 9 to 11-year-olds in this group throwing, and we're just going to do a shuffle fire strike competition with the radar gun on, because they're not used to throwing with the radar gun anyway. And number 2, they love to compete and do fun stuff. We don't want to do mechanical breakdowns of those guys because they don't even have the arm strength to be able to do anything. And at that age too, we know if the kid has bad patterning, he'll actually feel it right away. And they're not very good at holding their emotions yet. So we'll just look for their reactions and keep them inside the game of competing to see who the best at shuffling and throwing the ball above 55 miles an hour in the box is, And so if you can create those competitive environments, but also allow them to have the freedom, like we were saying, for Cass's point, him coming from that giant facility and with the 25 cages and the weight room and all that stuff, and then here's me, and I'm just like, no, we're just going to kind of chill with it and just do it this way, a little more low key, try to feel the music, have a little fun with it,
Well, and
I like that a lot.
The thing is I found myself, like, and he alluded to it a little bit, I needed to say it the way that he said it. And so what I am is I'm a blueprint stealer. But what I've learned is that my blueprint is so much more valuable than everybody else's, right? To your point. But it's what makes me good, and it's also what holds me back in ways, right? So yeah, there was just a learning process of, I didn't feel like I could actually be myself until I was an expert in John Sintez. And it's a learning process. It's having I think, honestly, Ferbs, what it was is courage. I didn't think that it wasn't that I was like losing that fear. I still have the anxiety of, like, if I'm talking to somebody that I feel like is a little bit out of my league in any way, right? My heart rate goes up. I get super freaking emotional. If you challenge something that I say, like, I'm going to take it more personally than the average person. But now I'm realizing that
Yeah.
that's courage. I just need to have some guts and just keep going. And it's been a fun ride, man.
Well, I know the feeling that you described very well, because when people, for some reason, I don't know why it was like this, but the more of a following that you start to get on social media, I guess more people are interested in the things that you're doing, I guess, with these guys. I got invited to a couple of different bigger, I guess, conventions or events to speak. And the one I went to last year, Lance Wheeler, Pitchapalooza. Have you guys been over there?
That we were just
We're
we
planning on
went to
going.
ABC. Yeah, we went to ABCA last year, and I'm like, John, we might need to go to Pitchpalooza. And then he just like couldn't believe how cool ABCA was. So I think we could go to all of them.
Yeah, ABCA is cool. It's almost gets overwhelming after a while. You can only stay in that convention center for so long, a couple hours at a time, right? I like it a lot because you can network over there. The Pitchapaloozas, I feel like it's more learning with a bunch of guys that I don't. It's wild. Like, he basically, Lance asked, you know who Lance Wheeler is?
Yeah, we've had him on the podcast. Core velocity belt. Yeah.
Sick. Yeah. So he asked me to speak, and I get that, but it doesn't give you any outline of what to say or what to speak on. He's like, just do whatever you want. I'm like, what? What do you mean? You know what I mean? And like, people are coming in there like Zach the Champ from TCU and Paul Nyman, Kyle Bodie and all these guys, right?
Yeah.
And it's tough because you go up there and you say, is the stuff that I'm not on that level of knowledge as far as mechanics, data, and all this, but then I think to myself, but I'm not here to talk about data mechanics. So why am I trying to talk about something that that is not my expertise, right? So I felt a lot more comfortable, and there was 100 different college coaches, pro guys that were sitting there listening to me talk just like we're talking right now. But in the beginning, man, it's tough, Cass, to get through that first initial phase of, getting off the ground. Once you start going, I feel like it is, but it takes practice like anything else.
Totally. And it's something that has helped me also relate to athletes, right? Because it's like, man, anything that can kind of knock you down a peg, I'm really good at creating perspective with it. I always talk about since graduating college, I didn't play. I played amateur baseball after that, but I've done CrossFit, I've done Olympic lifting, I've done things that got me out of my comfort zone. And I remember vividly when I started doing Olympic lifting, I was like, I know exactly how to do a clean jerk snatch, in the sense that I can get the weight over my head, or I can get the weight there, but I have no idea how the right way to do it is. And so that learning curve, and then having somebody that was very intelligent tell me those things, and me being the very like analytical intellect that I want to be, I had no idea. I'm like, bro, can you make that way more simple for me? Like, I don't want that whole long story. And like that, I was hearing myself in my coach, and that really helped me like change my perspective. So at the end of the day, it's occurred to me to look at it through the kids' eyes as often as I possibly can. And I always say, like, oh, I don't know if it was bad coaching or just like my immaturity, why I wasn't more like into this. And it's really just like a lot of kids can't, right? Not a lot of kids want to play baseball and think about how their body's moving. They just want to play.
Well, that's a big problem that you see in a lot of instruction. Number one, with the young guys especially, everybody likes to focus on these big leaguers and what they're doing and how they're moving, and that's what we should emulate. Yes, but when you're setting kids back 2 and 3 years in their development, in the beginning stages of it, it becomes hard to be able to teach them how to unlock a sequence to create velo, or to hit a ball hard, or to swing a bat. And when I see guys doing really like meticulous constraint drills, or even trying to make super small mechanical adjustments in a kid that has no body awareness, it doesn't happen. And people get frustrated and they put it on social media, and you look at it, and you're like, well, okay, that's not even though he's talking and saying this is what this drill does, the player's not doing it. He's not executing the drill. So half of it comes with the execution. Is the player able to execute what you're asking him to do, or are you just doing something because you think you're going to get views or create a conversation? Because if it's just to say, hey, hey, coaches, what do you think of this? Coaches, comment in the bottom what you think. Now you're just trying to start a conversation rather than I think the right question is to the player, what do you think of this drill? Has it helped? Do you feel like when you go out in a real game, is it helping you execute and win? Or are you just doing things in practice to look good in practice when it doesn't matter? And you're not retaining that information, and it's not translating when it actually counts. Just like with Jordan, you guys talking about that before. It didn't seem like the guy, he was a monster in practice, but that's not that's not it. You know what I mean? That's not enough.
And the crazy thing is, like, when I'm okay, so like right there, you answered my question exactly. And I'm sitting here going, you know what? I should be asking him more shit about personalities and the way that he does kids, because it's like, that's the part that you fucking are really good at. And that's also the part that gets people jacked up. So like when you lead with that and you make people feel a certain way, like you said you do, and you obviously do, right? Like, then the movement can happen. Like, the movement is more likely to happen. So one thing that we have, dude, you got, and I know you have a million people in your thing, but like, we have a guy in town, their place is called S10 Fitness, and the guy's name is Chris Daly. And they assess athletes through first their vision and then their balance in their vestibular system, or their ears, right? And I've never heard anybody do this. And
hold on,
who said hold on?
I think Ferber did. There we go.
What's that? No, I just wanted to make sure. Can you guys see me again here?
Yep.
Were you able to hear me?
You guys okay? I completely lost you guys.
Oh, that's cool.
I didn't hear. My Wi-Fi totally went out right there. Could you just go back, Cass, and just start where you were talking about the end?
Yeah, John. I'm sorry, I'm losing my train of thought.
Can you hear me okay now, Cass?
Yeah. Help me, John.
You were talking about you were right about the end of talking about
how you wanted to get into his.
Oh, S10 Fitness. Yeah.
S10.
So S10. So it made me realize. So we have kids come in all the time. I mean, definitely will not name names here, but we had a kid that was maybe a sophomore or junior in high school come in maybe 3-4 months ago, and I could tell right away that there was a really interesting dynamic between him and mom. And I kind of like, I had a conversation. Usually what I do on day ones is I kind of show the kids the thing, and then I go talk to the parents as John runs them through the thing, so I can make sure that I know, hey, day one, I want to make sure that you know that if you have a problem with me, you need to tell me. And if I have a problem with you, I'm going to tell you, and we're going to have complete open communication, because that's the only way it's going to work. So anyway, I dug into this kid, and he's exactly like me, but he's like, we're talking about personalities. He's the bottom spectrum of like when it can get, when my personality can kind of go negative, right? So everybody's personality has this different level of like when it's at its best, when it's at its worst. And I could tell right away that this kid's just struggling. Sure. And so what it turns into is there's so much self-doubt behind everything that it freezes him. So this kid's like freaking 16, 17 years old. And I would say just like, hey, put your feet in this position. And he was so scared of doing it wrong that he couldn't, like, he needed, do you mean like this? Those kids that need that affirmation on every single thing. And what I'm getting at is I wasn't only able to do it with what I say or how I acted. I had to use other tools. So we've got some like mental training tools where I can just be like, hey, go through this process. And they don't understand it. There's no explanation. It's just like, this is so simple. Go through this. And that brings them down. And as soon as I realized this, I'm not, it doesn't matter what it is. It's just like, if you have anything, as soon as I brought them down, all of a sudden his throwing got infinitely better. I go, this has nothing to do with the technique. There was no way that you were ever going to be able to execute anything if you felt as uncomfortable as you did there. And just like, I just, all I'm saying, man, is like, and this is full transparency, Ferbs, like I have followed you forever. And being a kid from the middle of nowhere in Minnesota, I literally didn't know how to hear you the way that I can hear you now. And I know that, I'm serious, I know that that's really common with people, right? So they're only going to have their ability. So you as the coach have to draw that out in them. And then I think the point is watching people like you who lean into that as the priority, your kids are always going to be better because your technique, it doesn't have to be as good as the other guys because your connection with them, like how many dudes will just like run through a wall for you? Like,
yeah, it's tough to get that. And when you get it where guys are on like auto kill mode and they just come out and they just love playing, the instruction level during the game goes down and the play goes up, and on practice then you see the little graph and instruction level goes up. What we have these days is we got guys trying to instruct during games. We got guys trying to overmanage, overcoach, and it's because it started by 15 or 20 years ago when you bring everybody inside and we don't have a balance of one, pickup games, competing with your peers. I don't care if it's wrestling, boxing, riding your bike down the street so you can jump higher on a bicycle. I don't care. And then you have also the sufficient training on this side where you're like, I'm getting better, I'm getting better, I'm getting better. Up, back to the game. Okay, this is what I did in the game, getting better, getting better. The one of the benefits that I had with seeing all different kinds of kids and actually being on the field, there's this breakdown in communication between the private sector, trainers, and guys that are field coaches. And it's because everybody's got this ego thing that they can't share like what we're doing. It's impossible because somebody either wants to take credit for a dude being a dude, or somebody gets their feelings hurt because they want to say, I got this guy committed somewhere, or I did this or I did that. We didn't do anything, dude. Nobody cares. Nobody cares who Mike Trout's hitting coach was when he was 14. Have you guys ever asked? Has anyone ever asked that question? Who was Mike Trout's hitting coach when he was 14?
I didn't think he needed one.
No, I don't remember anybody asking. I'll even go as further to say there's probably not one person in the entire world that said that guy right there at 14 is going to be the best hitter of this entire generation. Not one scout, not one evaluator, not one guy. I know the guy in New Jersey, Tri-State Arsenal, and he was a solid player, good player. I mean, never would have imagined he was going to be the best, right? So all these things that people try to box guys into, and then so what happened was I had a team of guys. They all got D1 committed. It was 26 guys I got brought through the recruit process. Guys are right now in the SEC. Everybody, ACC, Vanderbilt, UNC, whatever, Boston College, Duke. They're all over the place, right? And about a third of the lineup, a third of them practice conventional hitting. About a third of them practice like grip and rip, more like max effort swings where they were like up the velo, exit velo swings. And the other third did kind of rearward barrels. They tried the teacher man, that style, all three. Okay, they tried all three. So I was literally watching it play. I was watching all these styles. I had the benefit of it because most teams, they train under one roof. I had guys that were from 6 different states on one team. So they were all training these pockets of guys, these trainers that I had to communicate with. Pitchers, I had guys that were stock righties that were 88, 89, 5'10", 5'11". They got scholarships, right? I had guys that were tall 6'5" righties with low 3/4 arm slots that are at UVA. 6'5" Matt Wyatt, right? He's a freshman there. He was 91 and 92 with like a 76-mile-per-hour wipeout slider. Then I had soft lefties. I had guys that were power pitchers, a couple of them, all different types with all different arm slots, right? And what we found out was each third of the lineup, some of them raked and some of them struggled. The conventional guys, the grip and rip guys, and the thing. And what I think most is when I look, and we'll look over the years of why certain stuff does at certain times, everybody wants to figure out this solution that just fixes it. And the people want to come up with this. I've solved hitting. It's this equation. X equals Z _, take it to the third power, and then you unlock Bryce Harper's swing. Dude, there's too many variables. Too many variables.
You're not a math guy, are you, bro? Underscore.
No, underscore. No, that's it's a new
hitting thing. Yeah, it's the formula.
I just created an algorithm on Cutternation podcast. I just created an algorithm, a new algorithm. Hey, it's X equals MC squared underscore to the third power.
Nobel Peace winner of 2020, Jason Ferber.
Yeah. Like the guy John Nash in that movie, A Beautiful Mind, where he solves all the problems. Yeah. So when you look at that, you go, okay. And then I would look at these guys and you go, well, the bottom line is, when it really comes back down to anything, train however you want to train, but most really, really high-level athletes will always revert back to what they know, what works during competition. So if you're having them do some silly shit in practice that doesn't really make a lot of sense, but you're just doing it, if he's a good athlete, he's probably going to say, hey, man, Cass, do some head spins over here. It's going to help you hit. Do some head spins and do some windmills and pop and lock a little bit over here. I want to see you do that. You're going to go, all right, coach, I'll do that. And you'll do it. And then if you have success in the game, hey, it was that new drill, the pop and lock we did the other day. That was giving you the success.
It was the algorithm.
Yeah, it was the new algorithm we worked on. That's why one of the reasons why I like the data stuff is because it stops a lot of
exposes people.
Yeah, the speculation, and you can program a little bit more. And listen, I've done it too. I'm not saying, I think everybody, when you start out, you have to do some experimentation in order to become a good teacher at anything. They have teachers, they got to intern, they got to be substitute teachers, they got to go in and learn and shadow somebody so they see, oh, that's what I do. If this situation comes up in the classroom, that's how I react to it. You can't just throw somebody in. I see some dads out here, literally, they're a baseball dad, and overnight they became a hitting coach. How?
And we're genius.
How did you morph? First of all, how do you morph? Like a mutant, you morph like from a. I work at the coal factory, and tomorrow I wake up and I'm a hitting coach. How? I don't think it works that way. You have to have like life experience, trial and error. You don't have to play in the big leagues, but you have to have at least like learned information and shot at somebody for a couple of years and seen a bunch of different things. So now you know how to diagnose problems, and you're not, because experimenting is cool if you're doing it for free, right? Once you start charging people, that suggests that you actually have some knowledge that you're going to impart on them, right? And so a lot of what I see out here is people experimenting on people and charging the people to experiment on them. So like, you know how NYU or any of these colleges do like a sleep study? And they'll pay you. They pay you to come in and sleep in their laboratory, and they get all this feedback, right? You guys have seen that?
Yeah, I've seen it, yeah.
You never saw them do sleep studies and things like that, Cass?
No.
Colleges or different laboratories, they'll say, we'll pay you money. It's literally, we'll pay you money to... Dude, they'll pay you money. So, but that's the difference. Hitting coaches that are just starting out, instead of paying people to experiment on their swing, they're charging people. So I don't know. It's a little bit in reverse.
Well, you bring up a lot of.
Hey, I'm not ignoring you, but I just realized that I was supposed to call somebody at 11 Minnesota time, so I'm not ignoring you. I just got to text him and let him know.
Get on.
What I really resonate with what you're saying, Jay, is that what it comes down to, and what we really rely on, and that you remember, Cass remembers, sounds like the genesis of when we fell in love with it, right? Your stickball game. It's what sticks out to me every time, right? Where, Cass and I have this argument all the time, and it's to his credit, is that we're over here talking about the mechanics of the swing, right? Which is like 1/3 of the equation, right? And everybody's obsessed with the mechanics, And we see it all the time. Like, I just got a DM literally a second ago on here, where a kid was asking me what his mechanics were based on his height and weight and based on his age, right? Well, Jay, guess where the video was? From the side. It's from the side, right? So what's he trying to show me? In my mechanics, do you see anything that's wrong? Well, when the ball leaves the frame, right, I have no idea where it's going. So if you can't even trust yourself on where you're moving and how you're doing it, and the ball doesn't go where it's supposed to, what are you worried about the height of your elbow for when you haven't even figured out how to throw the ball where you want to? Like it seems to be, I'm with you, because everybody's looking for this secret sauce or the answer or the solution, and they're trying to define all this stuff, and it's literally right in front of you. Like it's as easy, as understanding exactly what you're doing, like, and how you evaluate it yourself. One of my favorite questions on this. Go ahead.
No, you know Lance Wheeler. I was just saying that guy Lance, and I don't know if I was telling you that we talk about that Johnny spin rate. It was you're talking about the same stuff he talks about, where it's instead of going to, all right, the kid's 11 or 12 years old, we're trying to have him throw with intent, right? He's guiding balls. He's just trying to get strikes. He's not really letting it eat, right? He doesn't know what it is to let it eat. And Lance Wheeler, back in the day, I was told one of the reasons I always loved talking to him is because I would say, "Hey, Lance, what are some drills I can do with pitchers? I have no idea what I'm doing with pitchers. I don't have any clue what I'm doing." I'm like, I feel like this kid has a good arm. It's loose, but he doesn't try to throw the shit out of it. Really, I can't see that. He goes, well, some of that is with age, right? And testosterone and how you develop until you get that man strength where you really do it. But there are younger kids that throw balls hard. And instead of taking them to the sports 3D biomechanical thing and hook them up with all the EA Sports suction cups, before doing that, why don't you just fill up a glass jar with some pennies, right? And then give him a handful of rocks with his friends and tell him, put it on a bench, right? The glass jar, and just say, shatter it. You don't want to be the guy that hits the glass jar and it bounces off. Everybody clowns you, right? Be like, dude, you're soft, dog. You know what I mean? Like, you have to. So you give the purpose. Now the guy's got purpose. Now he's gonna move down the mound with some purpose. But why can't it be that simple? Why do we have to say no? We gotta get him into a sports science laboratory. Like, no, dude, you gotta get him to throw hard.
That was my favorite thing from his podcast. Was he was talking about his 9-year-old, and he said, "I've never told him anything. I've told him to throw the ball hard, right? And I've had him on a radar gun, like he's seen his velo, but then I have him break bottles." I'm like, I bring this up to people all the time, and I'm like, as soon as we have the ability to have our own place, I'm dead serious. We are having a place where you can blow up bottles. It's going to be the funnest thing of the every month. If we did it once a month, that'd be the highlight of the month every time. Like, and talk about content, slow-mo blowing up bottles. You kidding me?
With those size rocks that are smooth, the ones you can find by the lake that you skip them 50 times. Yeah, but just don't let somebody spike a fastball or something and somebody get killed out there.
Well, safety first.
One of those rocks will ricochet.
Yeah, Cutternation, you're gonna have to sign the waiver. Make sure that you do your arm care routine before you start slinging rocks over here into the area. So yeah, on the same idea, what you're saying, Jay, I love the idea of your team, and when we talked, Nashville a little bit and how we've kind of communicated over this time frame is, that version of the team that you have. I want to just compliment you because I don't think people understand what it is, right?
I also heard that.
But we're talking about a non-adult, no coach, no parent way of playing baseball because of the freedom that you give these guys, right? Like, hey man, just don't look like an idiot. You know what I mean? Like, that's the basic idea of what we're trying to do. But go out and be flashy and try to make that Jeter play and bat flip and do all that stuff. Because when the parent, we already know, like, if we had a girl play a real baseball tournament and there were no coaches there, how do you think that game would go? How do you think the game would go after? Because we know how it happens every time, right? When you see the way competition in sport goes, the first guy to start talking that says something starts the other guy that starts the other guy. Then it turns into the whole thing where now it gets a little heated, and now they're actually playing for what, to Cass's point with Peterson, is play, which is that competition. And one of my favorite things that we talked about on the podcast is when we do live at bats, and I'll throw to college kids or high school kids, I'll talk to them like it's you and me, Jay, and we're playing kickball in the middle of the at-bat, and they have no idea what's going on, right? Like, I distinctly remember pumping a fastball inside to a lefty, and he kind of took it and, like, did his head motion like that, and I barked at him. I was like, hey, man, swing the bat. And he, like, looked at me like, what? I'm like, yeah, dude, I got to hit that. What are you doing? Swing the bat.
Did you guys see the Trevor Bauer thing last night with him versus Miguel Cabrera?
No, I didn't.
I don't know I don't know if the full video is there, but you got to go watch it. But it's, the short version of it is he throws a fastball up and in first pitch of the at bat, and Cabrera leaves the whole dirt, goes like almost in the grass, and is barking at the dugout saying, "What the hell are you throwing me inside? Like, what are you doing?" And then he was also talking to the catcher at the same time in Spanish, going like, "Dude, I'm just clowning right now." And then Bauer had no idea. So Bauer was like, he does his little circle around the rubber. He looks up and Cabrera's 15 feet away from the box. And then I'm assuming the end of the thing is, because it was like when Miguel Cabrera like tricked me, it was like he probably just threw him the same thing or whatever it was, but he wasn't playing the game. Is the whole point, is that Miggy has the ability to say, I'm going to come in today's game, and I know what Trevor Bauer likes to do. He was apparently looking for a slider away, I think was what he said. But like he knew that he planned to do those antics before he went in the game. Like that was part of his that was his approach. His approach was, I am going to make this whole big display, and that's going to give me a pitch, and I'm going to win a game because of it. It's crazy. And kids just they aren't allowed the freedom to even think like that, right? How do you do that in a respectful way? How do you do that in a way that isn't like being a douchebag? Because there's a way to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've seen some pretty crazy stuff in those big league spring training games, too, where you kind of can get in close to the action. And I think 2 years ago, who was it? These guys was rehabbing with the Blue Jays, and he had some ABs, but he was like, before the game, was like talking to a couple of guys in the BP area, and he knew the guy was going to they were going to try to get him with a slider, right? And so the first pitch of the AB, he said before, and he said, I'm going to make myself look silly, and then I'm going to absolutely tee off on this dude. And he swung at a first pitch slider in the dirt, and made himself look foolish, a little bit foolish, like what the hell are you doing? And another fastball, and he took next pitch slider for strike, tattooed it like 400 feet, and people were just like, dog. Nobody's swinging. Nobody is doing that type of stuff at low level baseball at all. Zero. Not one guy's thinking like that. No hitter, because you don't have to think like that, because pitching will always dictate what we do as hitters. And a lot of the hitting guys, they think that we can control our bat path, right? They think that swinging off of a tee or a front toss is getting work in, right? There is no one bat path, because there's a million different locations. So competing and adjusting, for me, when I started working on those two things, I want to be on time, obviously, but competing and adjusting that's it. Mechanical stuff, if you hit a ball hard, you can go in reverse too. Everybody tries to build this swing to hit a ball hard. Why not try to hit a ball hard? And you have to do certain things in order for that to happen. You know what I mean? To hit backspin, rocket, you have to do
that.
You know what I mean? And so why? And that's why these kids every time they have a bad game, or they throw bad, they walk a couple of guys, and they come in, and they have excuses, and the excuses are always, dude, I felt like my front side, like I was leaking on my front. I had a picture this kid, dude. I had a picture of this kid, Jeremy. He was at WVU right now, right? And he was one of those guys that had an unbelievable talented kid, like one of those whippy ass arms. That's like, those arms that are so fast that it almost looks like they're not on time, because like they shouldn't be on time, but they somehow get there. And it's just like, his shit was so amazing whippy. But he would always, if he was missing or he felt like the ball was sticking to his hand, it was always something. It was always something. I'm like, and I would come out there and be like, he said in the middle of the game one time, like second and third, he's like, hey, am I leaking on my front side? And he goes, do you see me leaking? This is what he says to me. I swear to you, John, I looked at him, I said, I have no idea what the fuck you are saying right now. I have no idea what that means. I don't know what that means. What does that even mean? What does that mean, Jeremy? What does it mean to leak on your front side? I have no idea what you're saying. I said, have you, and I'm sitting here on the with the catcher, all the team, and everybody's looking at me like, wait, I'm like, I'm not going to help you. I'm not here to help you, because I have no idea what that means. So don't talk to me. I said, do you think about your front side leaking when you were playing catch with Josh before the game? No. Okay, so why are you thinking about it with runners on second and third in a 7th? That's crazy.
We tell kids all the time when they come in, especially when they're new, and they'll say the same thing. They'll have a precursor before they even throw. Hey, make sure that my front shoulder stays tucked in or whatever. And I go, don't tell me something somebody else told you to say. Okay, let's not do that. Right?
No.
Why don't we throw the ball and let the ball tell us what we're doing right or wrong? I mean, we talk about it all the time. If you know how to evaluate if you're doing something right or wrong, the ball will actually tell you if your front side is leaking, right? You don't need somebody else to be watching to go from there. That's a different thing. And at that point, now your goal set is off. You're not even putting together what the idea is, right? You're over here worried about your front side and mechanics. Meanwhile, you don't even realize that the goal is to throw the ball in the strike zone, right? So you think somehow these are connected when in an athletic movement, I said this the other day and I really liked it, so help me out with this, Jay. If you have to think about 30 ideas, right, to be able to have your mechanics be perfect, right?
Yeah.
You can't say 30 words in 0.4 seconds to throw 90 miles an hour. How in the world are you going to do that? You can't even say 3. It's got to boil down to one idea.
It's scientific fact that we can have many thoughts, but they come sequentially. So I can't think about Cass and think about you at the same time. I have to think about him and then you. I can't, if I'm swinging and I'm in an at bat, I can't, if I have an aggressive approach, that's my thought. I can't have a defensive approach at the same time. It's impossible because the thoughts happen chronologically. So when you start flooding guys, if I'm trying to throw a sinker and I start I start thinking about what my knee is doing, you can only think of one of those. You can't think of the two at the same time. Thoughts don't come to humans in that way. Our brains don't work that way. They have to work in each thought.
Well, and I think it's helpful. Yeah, I think it's helpful to help them understand like what the function of it is too. So like sometimes I might think like in a game, I'm just going to focus on my drive leg this whole entire day because that's the part of me that doesn't get in my way, right? So if I do have, you have to have some of these like safe words, if you will, where it's like that doesn't mean anything to me, but it means everything to me. So like when I was a kid, I barely played at all. Like I just am from the middle of nowhere, so I think I played like 15, 20 games. And, I'd have a bad game. And every now and then my dad would just go throw to me at the local park. And all he had to say to me was like, when I was struggling, because we had that context, he'd just say, the park was Grove Lake. So he'd be like, hey, just Grove Lake baseball, dude, Grove Lake baseball. That means nothing, there's nothing behind that. But it was this idea of like, there was nobody there. I didn't care if I swung and missed. I didn't care if it was a ball or strike. Dude, my dad was 1 for 20 and throwing me a strike. So I'm swinging at balls in my eyes. I'm swinging at balls bouncing off the ground. It didn't matter, and that was so helpful for me. And the challenge is now is like that world doesn't exist for 99% of kids, right? There aren't teams where it's just like, okay, you're the starting third baseman, go play, have fun. Like it doesn't happen like that. You didn't get cut from my high school team. You just made the team. You want to play? Sweet.
Yeah.
It's just you can't. How do you recreate that kind of stuff? And that's really the challenge. Is you're talking about your upbringing. How do you create that? You don't want to create that, do you?
No. You don't want to create somebody growing up in a crack epidemic just so they can hit baseball, so they can compete.
Yeah. So yeah, dude, your perspective right now is going to be unbelievable.
But I mean, the thing is, I used to think a lot of it had to do with upbringing and how much money people had. But I found out later on that there's some guys that are from the projects that are lazy and have no drive and don't want to come out and go compete their ass off. I see kids that are super wealthy that are lazy and want to just hang out and get a free BMW to drive around. And then I also see kids from affluent families that are driven, crazy passionate about getting up and have to win. So I don't think necessarily it's a money thing. I think it's something that happens up here where you the thought of, most of those guys that I see that are the big leaguers that I hang out with, spend any amount of time with, they're the same in golf and if they play a game of Uno or if they even bake some brownies, they're one of the best brownies in the world. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's no like, oh, I'm competitive. Jordan was talking about that. Yeah, Jordan was talking about that in his thing. Remember, he was saying like it was. I was so competitive, and even with his brother and stuff like that, that it's tough to kind of recreate and simulate that in a facility setting. You can get it with live at bats. You can get some juice in there, but it's something about seeing a guy with the other uniform on, being out there with all your guys that you have worked in the off season with, you sweat with, you flip tires with them, you push sleds with them. You picked him up when his girl left him, right? That's your boy. You know what I mean? And then you go to the field, and now you can play, right? Because everybody but I feel like it's gotten a little bit weird as of recent years. Kids are confused as to why they're playing, and that's dangerous because when it gets to I'm playing because I want to get a scholarship. That's the reason I play. I'm playing because I want to get drafted. And I don't know how much you can hold on to that if it's not something that comes from somewhere different. I think that could be a fleeting thought, wanting to get a scholarship. And when you don't get that one place that you thought you were going to get to, a lot of guys don't know, and especially if you've been given a lot of stuff, kids get frustrated, they end up quitting, they end up feeling bad, they end up not having a good view of themselves. It's the same humbling experience as when you go in a big field, and a lot of these kids, I see a lot of kids that are out here, even on social media, on the little field, you're a phenom. You know what I mean? And the big field's a humbling experience. Now, those homers that you were pimping 200-foot homers, bat flipping 30 feet in the air for a 200-foot homer like you're in Disneyland, right? Now, you were Mike Trout yesterday, and this morning you can't buy a hit.
Do you know John Peabody?
John Peabody. No, he sounds like a professor at Cambridge.
He has a pretty good Twitter following.
Yes.
I'm kind of surprised you don't know. Anyway, he's out here in San Diego, and he just posted yesterday. He was the number one 12-year-old in the country, and he's our age, so back in whatever 98 or whatever it was. And He posted it because he's like, I did not get one big league at bat. So just so you know, your 12-year-old self, none of that shit matters. He was 6'2" at 12. His numbers, he hit 40 home runs in like 20 games. 40. It was unbelievable. His RBIs was like 150. Like, what the hell? And seriously, that actually can't be that cool. Do you know what I mean? It'd be like us going back and playing high school. It's like, what are we doing here? And the fact that you really need some people there. So yeah, it's crazy, man.
I like the idea you were talking about. I remember Jordan talking about like where I was telling Cass this, where he creates his own motivation and learning how to do that. One of the ideas that just kind of resonated to me on when you were just talking there, Jason, was being the best, right? Is what, the kids aren't playing. They're playing for the D1 scholarship. They're paying to be in the pros, right? Well, if you're playing to be the best on the field in front of everybody that day, then that stuff will handle itself, right? And that's where the data helps you understand that and rank yourself, not into compare, but to understand like what level you have to get to even be considered into there. But still, like, we know the BP All-Americans or, the bullpen just aces that go out there and can just be in the training world maximum. But when it comes to playing, like, and you being New York, like, help me out with the environment up there. And I don't know how it is, but I can only imagine for the guys that I've played with that are from New York, like the level of talking going on in the game and the psychological warfare going on. Like, I just see people can't handle it, I can't imagine how much fun that would be.
Listen, I play recreational. This is in Brooklyn, recreational fast pitch softball, okay? Right now, with the sickest 30 to 50-year-old guys, there's 50-year-old pitchers in there that will strike out Mike Trout with a softball. I don't know how they do it. I have no idea how they put the spin on it. If you did pitch logic with that softball, I don't know what you find, but dude, they can change it 40 miles an hour from a fastball to a changeup. I mean, you know what I mean? So, and make it look like it's coming out the same way, like you swing twice. It's Woody Woodpecker stuff. Anyway, so those guys at their age, I've seen guys threaten umpires with a metal bat that they said they were going to break. They said they were going to kill him. Literally threaten a guy to kill somebody. Like they've had umpires, they've had to get so many new guys because guys were threatened to be killed. And they say, I mean, at a certain point, I look at them and laugh because they're just crazy Italian guys and crazy Dominican guys and guys that say the wildest stuff, like literally cursing, talking about your mom while you're up to hit. You know, I mean, there's the wildest stuff. I mean, like, I look at them and I'm like, can we just play? You know what I mean? But I have fun out there. But even when they were young, when these guys are young, a lot of trash talk out there. Basketball too, man. These guys talk so much trash. I think that's good. A lot of kids these days, if you don't go out to the schoolyard a lot and just pick up games with random kids, you know, when you do get, eventually dudes do talk trash. You know what I mean? 16, 17, the best players. And I'm not saying trash in a it's like when you're competing with somebody, I don't like you right now. I'm not. There's some kids that they go to play a Kid at Perfect Game and then before the game, they go on Perfect Game rankings and say, oh my God, he's committed to TCU. We're going to play against him right now. He must be really good, right? And like that, to me, that ain't it. I would say some other stuff that I'd go into that whole thing, but let's not keep it PG for now, right? What I would say is a lot. Can you hear me right there, guys?
Yeah,
good.
So my earbuds ran out of energy because
this is the key. You got to get two pairs like me.
Crazy. But so yeah, exactly. So some of these guys, they'll look up these guys and psych dome themselves thinking about. I'm like, how do you actually look at another man, okay, like that, like in awe of another man? Like that's your own age. It's not like I can be in awe of Derek Jeter. That's cool. I can do that. I can be in awe of Mike Trout. I'm not going to be in awe of a kid that's my age. That's crazy to me. I don't know. Even if he's really good, he's still my age. And that's just, you're not that much better than me. I don't know how you can play like that. I don't know.
So the trash talking part, I didn't, way too sheltered. And I didn't realize for the longest times that when my friends were talking shit about me, that was them like liking me. It literally, yeah. I'm serious. Like, how many kids actually get to just like go and hang out with their friends from like noon to 7 o'clock? Like most kids, you know, your age or my age got to do. It's just a different level. So we see kids all of the time that it's not even close. I can relate to it though. I understand it. But even now it's like, yeah. And that couldn't be more opposite from your perspective. Do you know what I mean? So yeah.
When I was 16, I've been in games nowadays. I've been in games against like, you know, big some of these big events, PG, Perfect Game, WWE, the World Series, Jupiter, you know, Johnny, all those places, right? And a couple times, like, they'll have kids on the other team that will heckle you so badly. Just teams from other places that come there, and especially if you go in there and you're like, oh, this is Coach Ferber's team. Now they're like, oh, we really want to beat these guys because we want to be able to post about it. When you put yourself out there like that, then everybody wants a piece of you. Put a target on your back. Umpires would not usually be really nice to us for some reason. We had a very classy team. My team was polished. I would tell you, we didn't do silly, stupid stuff. Everybody went hard and we played the game the right way, but they didn't like the flash behind it, right? Some of these kids would go like first or second inning, would come in, strike out the side the first inning, right? Some like dog was out there like just letting it eat. And then the kids would come in and our hitters would come up and all of a sudden you'd hear like these dudes would actually go on, these guys find their PG profiles, go search your social media page and be like, hey, I see your girl Sherry. You were yeah, I see your girl Sherry. She looked pretty good. Your trip to Nantucket was pretty good last summer. Like screaming that while guys are after me. I was like, man, you guys are like, for me growing up, that's a fight. But again, you can't fight. You can't fight in front of college coaches. That's the type of stuff that kids get away with. That and after the game, like for me, after the game is over, if you're talking about my girlfriend, looking at her pictures while we're playing in the middle of a game and talking to me about her, I'm beating you up after the game. Okay, I'm not shaking your hand, whether it's Corona season or not Corona season. Okay, I'm gonna say now you wanted to talk a lot of trash.
Let's talk now and go out and go to the park. But that's the type of stuff you get. You don't get that if there's no authority figures. Think about it. If you're playing a pickup game in the street, you think somebody's going to start looking at somebody's girlfriend out there? No way. They feel
it happens all the time in adult league ball. Like if you look at like adult, like softball or adult baseball, right? Like someone starts talking, and the next thing you know, there's the video. It's online, and there's some dude. Somebody's mad. You know, they brought a bat into it. I'm totally with you, but that's, you know, I don't think that in the baseball culture, we know how to harness that, like you're saying. Like, that's actually sportsmanship. And then afterwards, they can't, hey, man, no hard feelings, right? Like, we were just out doing our thing. I remember being a junior. I was as sheltered as Cass was. I came from, you know, I was obsessed with baseball, but I had a coach my freshman year who said he was retiring, and he didn't retire for 7 more years. So that's what kind of high school baseball experience that I had going into it. But with that being said, it was really interesting to see that level of junior college where last year draft and follow, absolute gangsters. In the conference that I was in, I think like something crazy, like a quarter of the guys were drafted. And then another quarter of the dudes signed their draft and follow letters before the draft to do it. So I was the slowest throwing guy at 87 in my freshman year of college. And it went from 93 to 100. And I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I had no clue, right? Current big leaguers right now, I saw them do stuff where I don't want to name them because what they did was crazy, but I saw a guy hit 3 home runs in the game. The first time he hit it, looked right at the coach, winked at him, went around. Our coach got like, oh, okay. Right, the next came up, smoked him in the back, right? And he looked at the coach, winked at him, and I was like, dude, this guy's just not backing down, right? Gets up next AB, bomb again, winks at him again, keeps going, and I'm like, dude, no way, right? Well, it ends up being like a close game. We get to the 9th inning, and it's like 1 run. Sure enough, this dude's up, right? He hits the ball. He's a lefty, and we're in the first base dugout. Hits the ball, spins around, looks at our coach, and says, thank you, Bill. And I was like, oh, my God. Like, that was the craziest thing I had ever seen. Like, you were yelling at a coach. Find out later, the guy got cut, right, the year before. And it was just pure motivation to show that guy that you made a mistake, right? And sure enough, second rounder, you know, and you find out the story later that he got released because he was a bad clubhouse guy. But when you look at the stories of what it was, he was just creating that Jordan level of expectation where he's going to pick at you because you're not doing your job. You're too much video games, or you're obsessed with your girlfriend. You know, that's what I heard. They're like, no, this dude's like all business. If you don't show up to the park and do your work and you're trying to win, then he's going to let you know. And so he was just misunderstood. And 3 bombs and an HBP later, you know, he single-handedly beat us, you know, and now he's a big leaguer.
Sheesh. That just got me thinking of Vance. We've been training Vance Worley, and he was talking about how the Vanimal developed, and he had Ken Revisa as an advisor, and he whatever the session was, and he realized that Vance talked to himself, and he's like, you should keep doing that, Vance. And he's like, now I just have full-on conversations with myself, and it's just like, when I got into that mode, it was just game over. And it's so cool because John and I were talking on the last podcast. I melt. My face just melts, and I go into like nobody else exists right now, and I don't even care that you're there. Because if I care that you're there, now I'm going to care that you're going to hit it, and I'm going to make mistakes because I'm thinking about you, right? And so it's I don't know where I'm going with it. It's just interesting. Everybody's different.
Man, you perform so much better in those situations where you're in that flow zone, in that state. You know, when athletes get in that flow zone and they can perform. A lot of guys don't even know what that flow zone is. They don't understand what gets the athlete to be able to perform like that. But if you take, you know, just young guys in general and the way that they view authority figures and the way that they view college coaches, you're never going to really get the exact thing that's supposed to happen. You're never going to get that. Not that there's 2 different versions of this game, right? There's that schoolyard game. There's that like college organized game. There's the little league game. And then there's this big league game, right? There's an amateur, then there's this professional game, and there's all these different things but it all starts and stems from that backyard pickup game, right? All those different those different types of games that stem from it. Soon, think about if you guys are in high school, you're sitting down with your boys at the cafeteria. Everybody's like, yo, like we're going to hit some seeds. Hey Johnny spin rate. Cass goes like, hey Johnny spin rate. We're gonna go throw some Cheetos and hit some seeds after the game. Meet us over here. All right, cool. Hey, look, check out that shorty over there. She's kind of feeling you right now, Johnny spin rate. You know, all that stuff. That's how you guys talk, right? That's how you guys talk. Yeah. Now the principal comes over and he sits down right at you guys' table and he's like, hello boys, how you doing today? And here comes Johnny spin rate. Hello, sir. How are you today, sir? Right? All of a sudden, right? Your posture gets up. You start eating with you're not eating like an animal anymore. Everything's, hello, sir. You know, as soon as he's going, right? So that's why when we introduce authority figures in general into young guys playing a game, right? You're gonna get a different feel. You're gonna get different stuff that goes on. If you're not in touch enough, or you don't have enough feel as a coach to understand what your presence does. And there's a lot of guys that don't even understand that their presence literally causes guys to screw up. Your presence, because your personality, and I'll just talk about me. I found out that, and I'm not saying you can't get guys to level up having a militaristic approach to baseball, because there's certain guys that grow up in that environment. We talked about that. They need more structure. They like structure. I had a kid on my team that just committed to West Point, right? Every other kid on the team goes, dog, you're going to be waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning to some guy with a bugler. They're like, and they mess around and they're like, dog, they're like, you're crazy. You're going to have to be like, get your mama's titty out of your mouth, soldier. Get your down and give me 100. You know, like, that's what it is when you go there. People, when you go to recruit, when the recruiting coordinator walks you around West Point, and I like West Point, those are my guy down there. When you are on the campus, it doesn't actually reflect what's actually going on. He's telling you the good stuff. Then you're going to be in basic training. You know what I mean? So, but his personality really liked the idea of structured military type of schedule. Other guys were like, "You're out of your mind. I would never go there." But guys, hey, listen. My phone is about to die. How much you got? We gotta wrap up.
We can wrap it up.
We're about hour 15 in. This is great, man. We definitely got to do this again. We got to get some more people in. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day and chatting. You and I have had great conversations, whether talking coaching, life, logic, whatever. So I appreciate you taking some time and I'm very, like I said, I'm very envious. I understand like what your organization does. I had in my own experience, I had a team after I graduated. I was an unrecruited nobody. And I played for basically the uncle of our starting pitcher, right? And he knew nothing about baseball, but he knew how to write a lineup card, and then he just let us play. And that was like one of the best teams I had ever played on. Like every person on that team played some form of college baseball, and then I want to say like 10 of them played professional, and 2 or 3 of them big leaguers. But the biggest thing I got from it was like these dudes were gangsters. They didn't care what the uncle said because they knew he didn't know what he was doing. And they just ran the game. Like, he didn't even coach third. It was hilarious. Like we had players coach third in the middle of perfect game tournaments, And so, like I said, if anybody gets a chance in your area, if you get a chance to get a session from you, I want to learn how to hit and how you're trying to do it, right? I want to hear the phrasing and just be around it. So my hat's off to you because you've really brought a very positive, impactful light to the coaching world.
Well, I'm grateful you guys would say that. And I got, first of all, I told you I was going to come up with a nickname for Cass. And the thing is, he looks like Jason Williams a little bit. You remember White Chocolate? The basketball player, White Chocolate? I'm calling him White Chocolate. Johnny Spin Rate and White Chocolate. That's
dude.
Johnny Spin Rate and White Chocolate right there. So listen, we're gonna have we can have another one of these. We can do one, maybe in a couple of weeks. Something will come back and reconnect and do another. There's a lot of more stuff, especially with the pitch logic thing that I want to talk to you about.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm gonna get your number. I hope I can. I'm gonna text you and annoy you. Sorry, but I'm not asking permission. Yeah. I'm telling.
No, you go. Tell me, Johnny's got.
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
I got it.
Well,
I got it.
We can talk on the side anytime, and also maybe hopefully bring you guys on to something I do. I've been doing Zoom like interactive classes. Really have not been.
Oh, for sure.
I do hitting
Yeah,
stuff.
There's something I definitely want to talk to you later about with the sequencing of pitching. What we've broken down to fast, slow. We're going to get to that later, but we could probably do another 3 hours with all of us anyway. But happens. We don't have enough time, right? Well, guys, go follow Jason. Go ahead. Why don't you tell everybody just like how to find you and everything from there?
Well, you can't find me because I'm hiding from Corona. No, I'm at Coach Ferber on Instagram. I don't have a Twitter. I just started a TikTok page just because I don't know why I did that, because I guess that's what you're supposed to do. I don't even know. I started a TikTok page so that all of the Chinese government could rob all my information. That's why I started a TikTok page. And also, where else? I'm not on Facebook. I'm just Instagram. That's it. You know, and
Instagram's the spot.
You can see me in the hood. You can either see me on Instagram or come to the hood, and you can see me playing stickball for $1.25 slices of pizza. That's it. That's the other place.
Bring your hanger because it's going to end up in the gutter for sure.
Hey, so I appreciate you guys bringing me on. And by the way, I'm actually might take a trip down to Atlanta, Georgia in the next week or two. I got a couple of guys down there that said they got a private field that it's done. I'm going to see if there's a way we can almost start making tutorials once I figure out how do you do live ABs and actually get guys work spread out. Like, how do you put 5 shortstops 6 feet apart and have them all take ground balls? How do you get outfielders working? Until we find out the date we can all actually play, I'm trying to put together a little tutorial on how to do it safely without getting a fine slapped on you or something like that, But I have to get to. I'm going to probably bring two pitchers, maybe 3 hitters in groups for maybe 1 hour groups where the guys are just trading innings, one inning, and guys are maybe they're getting their ABs, do matchups, maybe just put a tire, instead of a catcher in the back to throw to or something crazy old school because, I haven't figured out the catcher thing yet. But just figure out ways to add some kind of suggestion and say, okay, maybe if we do this, we can play this way or this way or this way. I don't see how you're going to figure that out with the catcher, but that's a whole nother discussion. I'm going to figure some stuff out.
Sounds good. Yeah, definitely. I mean, we love live at bats. As soon as we, you're in New York, we're in California.
The catcher thing is weird because of how close he is to the batter. Is that what you're saying?
I guess I'm the umpire, and I don't know how. I don't know.
Yeah, that's. Yeah,
they keep saying we're gonna let these young kids play, but the catcher's gonna be back 6 feet and just block balls. I said, what catcher would want to be in a situation where he can't frame a pitch and has no ability to throw a runner? What is he doing? Picking up balls.
I can just imagine all the bruises all over this kid, poor arms lit up, legs, huh? What? Bouncing?
I would not catch. I would not.
What's the pitcher aiming at now? Yeah.
No, that's ridiculous.
Have you seen how Korea does it, by the way?
The what?
Have you seen how Korea does it, the umpire and the catcher?
Yeah, how are they doing it?
They just clothe each other up. The umpire is fully clothed with the mask and no skin exposed, and the catcher's the same way. He has no skin exposed. He's fully masked. He has even his ears covered, and the catcher has to wear a ski mask also. So if Korea is able to do it, yeah, and then they're also doing 2 temperature checks and 2 tests, one when you enter the building and then one before the game.
But doesn't it take 14 days to actually show up?
In Korea, they have the that 5-minute test.
Dude, Raj, the Synapse guy, was telling me the same exact thing. Is the thermometer thing is there's too many flaws in that. It's the solutions. Yeah. I don't know, man. I'm real skeptical on how we're gonna do this. I'm trying to, yeah.
Are you sure they don't shoot you if the temperature goes up a certain height? They don't shoot you on the spot.
That's
a good way to. Hey, why are these guys' numbers down? Why are these guys' numbers down so far?
Hey, he's down. He's down today.
Nobody
scratched him from the lineup.
You shot that guy? No, he died from Rona.
Yeah, man, that's crazy. You made an illegal substitution. No, he died. I had to
don't understand like what baseball players bring. We
Oh,
always go
man.
way too far. I try to explain like that unless you played ball, like you don't know what that level is. Like I've heard some football players, basketball players get there. I'm like, no one's nearly as dark and twisted as baseball players. For some reason, we suffer so much because of the amount of failure that we go to. Everybody's always goes to like the catastrophe level of whatever it is.
Yeah. Everybody be like, yeah, like he passed away. We remember, but he would want us to be playing right now. That's what he would be. I would. Listen, I
Oh
swear.
man, you're the
Let's
best.
stop the game. Keep going, guys. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
dude, like
hilarious.
I mean, tip your cap to me or whatever. But get back in the game, man. Get next pitch, dude. You don't got to spend time doing that for me. Hey, listen, much love, guys. I really appreciate you having me on.
Thanks, Jay.
Appreciate
It's been
it.
awesome. Appreciate it. Thanks for opening up and getting everybody that awesome brain.
Yeah, you guys stay safe out there, man. I'm always willing to hang out, share ideas with you guys. All right, be good. All right.
All right, thanks, man.
Sounds good,
See
man.
ya.
Appreciate it.
Take care, boys.